Hi guys, it's Alex here. So I'm back with another dev blog for Broken Shore second edition. And today I want to go over the largest chapter, the core rules. So I'm going to go a little bit quicker than, than I would like to, but if I explain every single detail and mechanic, this video is going to be 2 hours long and I want to keep them a little bit shorter. So yeah, let's jump in. So, well, as you can imagine, this is a D100 system, like most of my games, and it uses the momentum engine, which is a D100 skill-based system. So it works like any other D100 system. You just roll under or equal to your skill, and it's a success. Then it has the momentum mechanic, which is one of the core elements of my momentum engine, as you can imagine by the name. So you can spend, all characters have a number of momentum points. They refresh at the start of a new session, and certain other circumstances can refresh them as well. So you can spend one before you make a check to add a plus 20 to your skill, or after to re-roll. But if you still fail after re-rolling, you get a complication. So here are the consequences. So I think it adds a little bit of decision making to every check, and it can give you an edge for those checks which are a little bit trickier. So, well, you have difficult modifiers, opposed checks, which is one of the core mechanics. Also, how you interact with other NPCs and all that. This is particularly important for combat, as we will see soon. Advantage and disadvantage. You can assist for group checks, and of course, you have critical successes and failures. Which in my game and in most of my games, if you roll doubles below your skill score, is going to be a critical success, and if you roll doubles above your skill score, it's going to be a critical failure. Then we use the usage die, which is one of my favorite mechanics. I use it for a lot of things, different kinds of tracking and broken shores and all my games basically. Combat. So this is of course a very important section and a very important part of the game. It's a grid-based tactical combat, but this, as you can see here, it uses a small grid, 5x5. This is the recommended one for 1-2 players. If you're going to play with more, there's a larger one, which is it's essentially the double the size of this one. You can add different terrain features to it. All this is randomly generated. Of course, it's very quick to set up. It takes just like 1-2 minutes to set all this up, and honestly, it's combat is very very quick. It's not the typical tactical combat that drags on for half an hour or an hour. This, on average, a fight is going to last 10-15 minutes. Of course, it depends on the number of participants, but yeah, on average, with 1-2 players, you're not going to be fighting for too long. I made sure of that. Well, rules how to deploy, how moving in phase, all the typical things, different area of effects, the different actions you can make. You have one free action, one move action, one reaction, and one standard action. That's it. All the different details, targeting, disengaging, how to flee combat, which is obviously necessary now and then. And then there's standard combat action. You can charge, dash, disarm, grapple, push, use spells or unique abilities, standard attack, trip, or use an item. So all pretty standard stuff. Then this goes over how the enemies behave during combat. So it depends on how wounded they are. All enemies have a standard attack, a special attack, and a support action. So depending on how they are progressing, how the fight goes on, they will do one thing or another, or even they'll attempt to flee. So this keeps the fights a little bit interesting and still simple to track. I didn't want you to have to be tracking a lot of stuff. So you just have to track the number of wounds they've suffered, which is part of any fight. This, well, how you resolve attacks. It's like I said, it's an opposed check. If the attacker wins, the defender suffers 1 wound and rolls on the corresponding wound table. If the defender wins, the attacker suffers D4 strain, which is, if you remember from the first video, strain, what it does is it reduces your defense, which means you're easier to hit. So this ensures that fights don't drag on for too long, and it will make you or your target easier to hit. So yeah, and if nobody wins, the defender suffers D4 strain. So yes, all this is in place to make sure that something happens every single round of combat, even if nobody managed to hit anybody. So yes, in my experience, this really speeds up things. Strain, yeah, like I said, you need to keep track of it. It's easy to just set up a d20 beside your character sheet to keep track of it, because it's rarely going to go over 20. I mean, it can happen, but it's rare. It's going to be either a really, really brutal fight if that happens, so it's not going to last long, or somehow stretch a little bit longer, which hasn't happened to me so far. Then how to deal with critical hits and fumbles, the different types of damage, which is this very critical aspect in this game, because in Broken Shores, every single creature you face is going to be vulnerable to a specific type of damage, and it's possible they are resistant to other type of damage. So that means that you should have a big array of weapons and tools at your disposal. You should come prepared to all fights, because even though a weapon by itself is only going to deal physical damage, since this has a pretty interesting and easy to use crafting system, you should try to imbue different types of damage in different weapons, so you're ready for different kinds of opponents. So making sure you're using the right type of damage against the right type of enemy is going to be pretty critical, and something that I think you guys are going to have fun with, matching different weapons to different enemies. And then this is all the wounds table. So like I said, when you manage to hit an opponent or they hit you, you deal 1 wound. Remember, you as a player, you can have as many wounds, sustain as many wounds as your fortitude, which is usually 5. But besides suffering that wound, you will also have to roll on the wound, on the corresponding damage wound table, so you know what happened, what are the consequences of that wound. So yes, this is pretty fun, and makes combat quite brutal. So you have arcane wounds, cold wounds. All these, like I said, they all correspond to the type of damage that you're dealt or you're dealing. Divine wounds, earth wounds, fire wounds, lightning wounds, necrotic wounds, physical wounds, psychic wounds, and shadow wounds. Sorry, I thought that was it. Water wounds and wind wounds. So like you can see, there's a nice variety of damage. Then we have the different conditions. Of course, you have to keep track of these things. They are not that common. Certain effects and all that, they will cause you to bleed or be blind and all that. But in general, you're not going to have to be tracking 50 of these at once. It's you might suffer 1 or 2 during a fight, and they come and go pretty quickly. So yeah, but an important part of any game, I think. Then this another quite crucial and different thing from Broken Shores is how you deal with trauma. I mentioned it in the first video. After combat is done, you reset all the wounds, you lose all the wounds. Your fortitude goes back to 5, but each wound becomes 1 point of trauma. So as you can see here, the second you have 1 to trauma, you are already going to suffer a -22 initiative checks, 3, 4, well, 5, 6. I mean, the more you accrue, the worse it's going to get. And of course, you are going to be wanting to heal that trauma, so you'll need to rest, take care of yourself, have somebody taking care of you. Certain spells and all that or potions can help you, but generally speaking, trauma, it's a bit annoying to heal, and you're, after a fight, unless you've been lucky, you're always going to end up with either lower initiative for the next combat, or having disadvantage in resolve and insight checks. So those 2 things you're going to feel your character becoming a bit slower and having trouble to dealing with certain things. So, but yeah, I mean, the problems start getting when you have 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, this is when things get ugly. But yeah, I think this is a pretty interesting way of dealing with wounds and all that, and easy to understand at a glance. And of course, this is Broken Shores is a game that focuses on ocean exploration. So of course, you're going to end up fighting opponents and finding and other vessels to fight. So this is a very, very simple naval combat system. I didn't want to get into much detail with this kind of mechanic and procedure because it can get cumbersome. So essentially, it's a one roll system, and it's this means that the stakes are pretty high because if you're not lucky and you are not prepared, which is more important than your luck, if your raft is not properly defended and has ballista and this kind of things, or the hull is not resistant enough, you're going to be screwed. So that's why it's very, very important that you are sure you are going to want to jump into a fight with some random vessel. If you're not prepared for it, I will encourage you to avoid it, because like you see here, you're immediately executed if you lose. You're taken as a slave to man the galleys. You're taken as a slave to be sold, or if you're lucky, that you're marooned in the next island, left with nothing. So as you can see, the consequences are pretty dire. So you're going to want to make sure that you are ready for a fight. Then hunger, like I mentioned in the first video. Well, this is an important thing to track. Your thirst as well. Again, all these black squares you see all around here, it's where art should appear once the game is done. Sorcery, I mentioned this before. In Broken Shores, well, the setting has suffered 200 years ago, suffered a huge catastrophe that flooded the whole world. It was a gigantic battle among the different gods, and only 3 of them survived: the goddess of the sea, which she decided to flood the whole planet, the goddess of the moon, and the goddess, I forget right now. I was 3 goddesses. Sorry. Well, it's irrelevant. The thing is that sorcery is very, very dangerous because the god of magic is dead, which means all these spells and everything that used to work properly and be something you could rely on, now it's absolutely unreliable and extremely dangerous. So each time you cast a spell, you have to either consume a small shard, one of these smaller pieces of the different gods that are scattered all around the world. These are relatively more common to find than the larger god shards, as we'll discuss soon. But so the small shards are they are relatively common to the point that they are even used as one of the currencies in the game. So you can spend a shard to ensure that the spell you are going to cast works perfectly, or you can just hope you're lucky. So when you make a spell check without when you cast a spell without spending a shard, you have to roll on this table. And well, as you can see, the effects are pretty dire. They're mostly horrible things until the 80 result. Here is when, well, sorry, no, with 79 you can already start casting a spell as it should. So as you can see, you are most likely to not cast the spell, and on top of that suffer horrible consequences. But sometimes you're so desperate that you have to try your luck. But generally speaking, you're going to want to have a shard to stabilize your spell. And this, well, all spells are, I mean, even if this is 2 characters have this know the same spell, they might learn them in different ways, which means they have different manifestations, so, or secondary effects and all that. I think this is a fun way of personalizing spells to each character. Then, well, you can learn new spells by finding them in the world, or maybe an NPC teaches them to you. They are all classified by their rarity. You have common, uncommon, and rare. And well, here's the list of different spells. There are 30 spells in total in this first book. And yeah, I think this should keep you entertained for a while. Then we have the Godshard's powers, which, like I said, the Godshard are larger pieces of the different gods that, when they died, they just scattered all around the world. The smaller ones became just regular shards, but the big pieces are these God shards. So for now, we have this 10. You can find shards from the god of the earth, goddess of dreams, god of the sun, god of duty, goddess of the night, god of justice, god of magic, god of battle, goddess of the sky, and god of the wind. These are all the different deities that died. There are more, of course, but these are the 10 I decided to include. And when you find one, you can choose to absorb it, and you'll earn some aesthetic divine trait. This has not doesn't have any mechanical consequence, but I thought it would be fun to add a small table describing. Well, yeah, I mean, for example, you smell faintly of rain and soil. Your heartbeat is deep and slow, like distant drums. So it's just something to show that you are slowly changing, because once you assimilate the godshard of a particular deity, you can only use future godshards have to correspond to that deity, and the more you absorb, well, the more effects you're going to accumulate. And this, like you see, they give you different powers. The if you get only one, you get the passive ability and one active ability. The second one will give you the next one, the third one will give you the next one, and the fourth one will give you the last one. So you can absorb 4 different ones per deity. And yeah, so these are all the different tables. It's fun stuff. But different ways of personalizing your character. Demonic corruption. So, well, of course, with a completely destabilized world and magic and everything blown to pieces, the energies from the nether realm seep into the material plane, and you're going to have to deal with demonic corruption sooner or later. Then another really cool aspect of the game is that you can get followers, and you can end up having a crew. Well, here you just explain how it's just explain how you get new followers, how you can use them, what they do. Some of them then, even though followers, they are meant to be like this NPC passive characters that are in the background. You know they're there. You can rely on them when you need them, but most of the time they're going to be like I said, background characters. You can interact with them when you're playing and all that, of course. But when it comes to combat, most of them are not going to jump into the fight with you, unless they have a specific trait, in which case they become a secondary character that will help you directly in all your fights. So all characters have a series of edges and burdens when you find them for the first time. And as they progress, you can decide to eliminate their burdens and help them gain new edges. So yeah, this is a fun little addition to the game to give you more options. So the next section, this is small advice. If you're playing Broken Shores as a game master, well, a little bit of advice how to do it. And then this is the most important section, I think, for players who are going to be playing alone or co-op. All the different tools. This is another aspect of the momentum engine that makes it unique. There's this narrative die mechanic, and essentially, when you make a check, and if you want to learn a little bit more about the nature of that check, what happens, the consequences, and all that, you can choose to also roll a d12. So, well, that will describe the action and give you a little bit more of nuisance. I think it's a very easy way to help a solo player to justify uh, actions you take or and how they happen, why they happen. So it's another narrative layer that will help you understand your gameplay and your sessions better. So here, well, we go over the gameplay structure, the scene, Um, these are tools that I've used in most of my other games, but I really went in because I haven't touched them. I wrote them a few years ago and I've tweaked them here and there. But this time I sat and rewrote a lot of the different sections and reevaluated a lot of the tools I had. So I think it's so far this is a game, Blackout game that explains solo gaming the best. I refreshed a lot of the tools. Most of it is the same tools, like I said, that I've used for years now, but they are a little bit better explained, and they are new tools as well. So I'm very very happy with how they turn out. So yeah, all your tables and tables and tables for playing alone. And yeah, so that's it. As you can see, it's a lot of stuff, but most of it it's very easy to understand. All the all this chapter, I think I did a good job at explaining the different rules. And if you're familiar with my other games, everything should be very easy for you to jump in and start playing pretty quickly. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye.